Well, they won't admit it. Journalists, along with cable news executives, they really miss President Trump. Ratings were higher. The job was easier. The storyline's clearer. I could go on. Plus, President Trump's kind of gotten boring at this point. He doesn't tweet anymore. Ron DeSantis is now starting to fill a lot of that same void. Someone for MSNBC to loathe, CNN to hate, and Fox News to love. His press secretary is fire on Twitter. Major announcement coming tomorrow morning from Ron DeSantis. Prepare for the liberal media meltdown of the year. Everyone gets some rest tonight. That was last night. Turns out that it was a bit of an overpromise. DeSantis relieved a state DA of his duties over a dispute on abortion laws. But cable news spent the morning debating if this was the big announcement for president. Trish Regan's here, longtime business journalist, host of the Trish Regan podcast. Can Ron DeSantis fill those shoes?
Trump shoes?
Yeah.
For the media? Look, I think those are some tough shoes to fill on many fronts, and I don't necessarily mean that as a compliment or as a dig. But I would just say that, those are some big shoes to fill, and I don't think that Ron DeSantis quite fills it. But, the media relishes every opportunity they can get to try and make a conservative somehow seem like a buffoon. And on this one, they are so wrong, only because I'll tell you, this is a guy who, maybe plays the part of an everyday American, but has a serious education background, Leland. I mean, we're talking both Harvard and Yale. He was part of the JAG program over in Fallujah. I mean, this is a serious individual. Yeah. Oh, and by the way, was also captain of his baseball team at Yale undergrad. I mean, he's got some serious credentials, which the mainstream media would never tell you about. But Leland, I think he's probably okay with that.
Yeah, I think he is as well. It's interesting. There was another president who was captain of his baseball team at Yale, but I digress. There's a decided difference, though, in how they talk, right? President Trump says all of the quiet part out loud. DeSantis sort of tends to leave a little bit of it to the imagination. Fill in the blank where you want. Here's a side-by-side. Take a listen on the border.
When Mexico sends its people, they're not sending their best. They're sending people that have lots of problems, and they're bringing those problems with us. They're bringing drugs. They're bringing crime. They're rapists.
The bottom line, though, is you are seeing increases in criminal activity, drug trafficking, human trafficking as a result of this failure. It is both a disaster and an emergency.
Is one of the reasons that a number of cable outlets have become so anti-DeSantis is because he's MAGA without the crazy, and that actually is more terrifying from an election standpoint?
Sure. I mean, I think leading up, if we think back to 2015 into 16, there was almost a rooting for President Trump, if you would, right? The left wanted him to run against Hillary Clinton because they thought he was easy peasy. They'd win this no problem. I think they recognize the threat that the DeSantis actually is, only because this is a guy who, maybe doesn't put it all out there in quite the same way that Donald Trump does, but he's got a lot of power, right? A lot of power, a lot of intellectual power. I think he's street smart. I think he's got a lot of things going for him that they truly fear. They really do. And so, look, Trump was easy for them to say, oh, you know what? He should totally, think back to like MSNBC and Morning Joe and how much they loved him, right? Until it turned out he was beating Hillary Clinton. And then they
loved him until the morning that they woke up and declared him president. And then after that, it all flipped. Although you see everyone rooting for a Trump rerun this time around, a third time, just because they love the ratings and how easy it is. This is what we thought was interesting. DeSantis, one of four big Republicans skipping CPAC, which is the big Conservative Political Action Committee meeting. President Trump's giving the keynote closing address. DeSantis not there. Governor Kristi Noem not there. Former VP Mike Pence not there. Nikki Haley not there as well. How do we read right now this Republican field, and how does the Republican field read Republican voters?
I think the reality that all of them recognize, except for maybe former Vice President Pence, is that if Donald Trump runs, he's it, right? Because the way our system is, the base is what tends to come out. So you got to get through the primary. And then the idea is you pivot to the middle, you bring in the independents, and you go home with a victory lap that way. But the question is, who can get through the primary if Donald Trump decides he wants to run? I mean, at that point, I think that Ron DeSantis runs the risk of alienating that base that he will need. And he's young enough.
Yeah, wait.
He may say, you know what, I'll wait 4 more years. Kristi Noem, same thing. Nikki Haley, it's going to be a challenge because if Donald Trump is there, he's going to suck all the oxygen out of the room. And I don't see how the others really make it through the primary.
You know, he went through, you and I were there, we covered it. We've been going through the Republican field. I think you moderated a debate about that as well. Very, very deftly, I might say. Thanks for watching. Go to newsnationnow.com to find NewsNation on your television provider. And don't forget to subscribe. Click the red button to get more of NewsNation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.